Even though they have not been credited as the fathers of experimental psychology, the psychophysics made important breakthroughs for the field and paved the way for their younger colleague, Wilhelm Wundt, to take that role when he opened the first laboratory dedicated to psychological research in 1879. Wundt refined their methodology into what he called experimental introspection and replicated many of their work. His goal was to discover the basic elements of thought and the laws by which these combine into more complex mental experiences. Similarly to the separation of matter into atoms in chemistry, he called the elementary processes of perception sensations and believed they combine to create an awareness of the environment. Looking back, of course, it doesn't sound so legit, especially when your professor already criticized this structuralist approach. Nevertheless, Wundt will have a tremendous impact on the world of psychology. Not only will his laboratory and lectures prove extremely popular, but he also started the first journal devoted to experimental psychology, as well as supervising almost 200 doctoral dissertations of many future pioneers of experimental psychology, all throughout the world. It's also noteworthy that despite what his experimentalist heritage could presage, he believed that the higher level cognitive processes could not be studied with experiments, but only with naturalistic observations or historical analysis by studying cultural products such as religion, social customs, myths, history, language, morals, art, and the law. At the turn of the century, some psychologists followed the example laid by the psychophysics and continued to treat psychology as a strictly experimental science. The behaviorists, emerging from the work of Pavlov in Russia while becoming prominent in the United States, were similar to the psychophysics in the sense that they willingly ignored the study of the nervous system to focus on the study of the manifest behavior. However, their studied behavior was not implying perceptual, but rather learning processes in what came to be known as conditioning. The need for subjective retrospection was thus dropped, which meant that the use of animals for scientific purposes became possible. Just like the psychophysics, they can be considered pre-cognitivists in the sense that their work led to assumptions on how the cognitive faculties of memory and attention work and lead to learning. But even if most psychologists of the time wanted to root their discipline firmly into the scientific field, the rigidity and the narrowness of the psychophysics and behaviorist methodologies frustrated many, who felt the most important questions would never be answered by quantitative experiments. William James, the first American psychologist, thought that very high-level cognitive processes such as thoughts and beliefs had real consequences on a person's life and could not be just tossed aside for the sake of academic rigor. Sigmund Freud found that fascinating psychological phenomena could only be uncovered under specific conditions difficult to reproduce in laboratory settings. However, some still believe that given the proper methodological flair, any of those cognitive processes could be studied in a valid experimental fashion. The work of Hermann Ebbinghaus, which I will certainly present in the cognitive psychology course, is a good illustration of clever experimental methodology to explore memory. But it was clear that the only way to reconciliate the most radical empiricists and those who believed psychology should cast a wider net to study higher faculties was to wait for more advanced tools. Fortunately for us, physiologists and neurobiologists were working hard at flipping the coin and uncovering our gray black box's secrets to study the cognitive processes from a brand new angle. That'll be on the menu next week. This week we've seen the beginnings of the cognitivist approach to the study of perception in the work of the psychophysics. Using experiments based on controlled physical intensity of stimulation, they could infer inner perceptual mechanisms by studying the mathematical relationship between stimulation and perception. Even though they couldn't yet verify scientifically what is happening inside the skull, their rigorous methods managed to raise psychology above its philosophical roots. If you want a pedagogic guide for this course to deepen down on the things we see here and to refer to in the future, you can find that on my assistant's Patreon. Thank you, Namaste and good luck.